We're live.
Welcome, everybody, to This Is Difficult, the podcast known far and wide for their highly intelligent podcast hosts. They clearly know what those are called. We know everything about video games. We even wrote the encyclopedias on them, which don't exist. That's how great
No, they're in my
are.
library. Dude, I put them in my library last week. It's fine.
Oh, true. They're minted. First editions.
Good.
Welcome to This Is Difficult. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. We come to bring you video game tidbits. I am your co-host, Lord Yeshua. And my real name is Josh. And we're on Ryugami-san's channel. There's Paul. Hey.
Hey.
And not a letdown. It's Zach. Oh, no.
What's up?
And I have nothing else to say. Pass it to Paul.
All right. Well, as per usual, I want to ask you guys how your weeks were. Zach, tell us, did you do anything fun this week? Did you play any video games? What were the highlights?
I didn't play a whole lot. Honestly, I kind of just unplugged. I'm in between games right now, or off. I'm in between off-screen.
It is an in-between game.
And so I just kind of took this week to just relax a little bit. I bought a few games today that should be here by the end of the week, so I'm pretty excited about that. Alex and I did play a little Gears Tactics. That was a lot of fun. We finally broke through the level that we were stuck on for 2 streams prior to that. So that felt really good. There was a lot of happy yelling and excited when we got through that, and then a few more levels beyond that too. So it's pretty quiet week, but a lot of fun.
Excellent. Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a quiet week.
Give you a little hosteroni here.
Josh, what about you, man? What'd you do this week?
Yes.
Games?
So I stole 2 batteries from work. Sorry, my boss, if you're listening. And I plugged them into my. So I opened my Wiimote.
Oh, I was hoping you'd say like Game Boy Advance or something.
Yeah, I thought
that would have been sadness. But this was also sad. My collector's edition Zelda Wiimote has been plugged into my guitar here. My guitar, basically, my Wii guitar. And the batteries inside, I don't know why. Maybe
did they explode?
They basically melted out a little bit. And so I pried them out and ISO'd the shit out of it and cleaned it out completely. Isopropyled like all of it and wiped it out. And it works! And I used those batteries. Put them in and played some Guitar Hero this week on Clone Hero, actually, which is like, there's no other way to play. Like my coworker was like, let's play Guitar Hero. And I was like, I have Clone Hero at my house. It's like anything we want. For those who don't know what this is, a not person that works for this company, Rockstar, I guess, or whatever, whoever did Guitar Hero.
Definitely wasn't Rockstar.
Rockstar, what do I think? Just because they're rock stars?
Oh, God. That's going to bother me now.
Who was it? Who made Guitar Hero? Either way, it wasn't them. But this guy was a modder who basically allowed like open sourcing on Guitar Hero. And so you can script your own songs. And
and harmonics. It was Red Octane.
Okay. And so you can bring any song you want into this game. So I have like 900 songs, like all the Guitar Heroes in it, plus like a ton of songs that were created by other people. It's so fun. For anyone who has a PC and a guitar, you should definitely download Clone Hero. It's free. But I didn't do
a Rock Band guy myself.
There's also Rock Band on this.
Nice. I don't have any of my equipment anymore. I like not the last time I moved, but the time before I moved, I lost all my.
I'm so glad I kept my guitar.
Yeah.
It's like I've had that since I was 18 years old. Like literally for 15 years almost. Wow. That's insane. I'm old. But yeah, aside from that, I plugged in some Donkey Kong a little, and I really haven't done much. I'm still waiting with bated breath for certain tidbits about a certain game. And I'm honestly without a game, like Zach said, I am waiting the ebb. The tide is pulling me out for Elden Ring right now. And I'm like waiting and preparing to play an insanely big game. And so I'm like, do I play another insanely big game before that?
Yeah,
and
so the game that you're talking about is
Ukulele.
It's
Ukulele and the unescapable terror.
Impossible Lair. It's free on Epic right now.
And I own Ukulele in the Impossible Lair. And it's actually a side-scrolling platform.
I was gonna say it's very much like Donkey Kong.
They stole a lot of the shit from Donkey Kong. It's just not as tight. And like I played it, and like instead of like casually exploring that game when I first got it for like $2 on G2A, I was like rolling through it and didn't learn anything about it because I was like, it just feels like Donkey Kong. So I'm just gonna like crush this game, and because of that, I actually didn't enjoy it at all.
Oh damn!
So damn
rough.
Oops.
It's rough.
But I watched a speedrunner. I watched the world record guy who also has the world record in Tropical Freeze. He has the world record in Impossible Lair, and it is insane. I highly recommend you check out speedrun.com, guys. And
it looks
watch this
cool,
one. It's
honestly. Like
very
I haven't
cool.
played it, but I downloaded it because it's free. And it looks like a cool game. It looks
It
fun.
is. I would say the mechanics are good, but it's close enough to Donkey Kong that for me, maybe I just have to unlearn a little, and maybe for someone fresh to it, it would probably be a better platformer. So I would say I'm not really knocking it. To me, it stands alone against the Ukulele, the original. It's not even. It shouldn't be compared. Although the story came up like a lot in it, and it's a fucking platformer, and that kind of annoyed me a little. Like Donkey Kong sets it up, and that's it until the end, and I love that. And like this was like a lot of story and like overworld shit, and I was like, that's kind of weird for a platformer. But aside from that, this isn't about that. Paul, your turn.
He just wants to hear about this game.
That came up because you jokingly said ukulele.
I know. Yeah, no, I
run.
Yeah, I was trying to distract you.
But the real game was all the other games you played first, though.
Yeah, I did play other games. I'm still I played a little, but not much of Kakarot, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot this week. Awesome. I will say it's getting better. I'm still pretty early in the game. I still wouldn't recommend this game yet. Now that might change. I think it's going to be better once I get to Namek, but I mean, that is an awful long time.
How many hours are you in right now? How many hours till Namek?
Maybe, I've only streamed twice, and they've both been like 2 to 3 hour streams, kind of short streams, so I'm probably about 5 hours in.
So you're saying like 10 to Namek, and then it's okay game.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. The combat is fun. Like the combat's obviously the highlight of the game, and that is a lot of fun. What I'm really not enjoying about the game right now is it feels very like handholdy, and like it's trying to do every single episode of Dragon Ball Z and like make you watch it and read all this dialogue and blah 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 blah, and like I just want to play the game, you know. Yeah. And so, and I've made this comparison a lot of times. We talked about it on the show last week. Dragon Ball Z, Legend of the Super Saiyan on Super Nintendo. It really did this exceptionally. And I think so far Kakarot has failed to do that, which is deliver more of an RPG experience than like a playable movie. Or a playable TV show, which is kind of what Kakarot is doing. Though I will say, in like after training with Gohan, it did seem to open up a little more, and like there's more interesting enemies in the world and things like that. So there's a little more motivation to go wander around rather than just go straight to the next objective. And so that's giving me hope, because I think if they do that and you do like Dragon Ball Collection on Namek and, you know, things like that, and they make the missions a little less like, here, watch this interactive movie and have a couple fights here and there, and more like you are, you know, Gohan and Krillin going around finding the Dragon Balls and having these crazy adventures on Namek while you're waiting for Goku and everyone to show up. You know, I think that'll be cool, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Yeah. Anywho.
More hand-holding and more episodic adventures, but okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't know. We'll see. But then I also played some more of Okami. Which is
Josh, come on, you had to see that coming.
I know, I did. I was playing it up.
It's so funny. I played a little more Okami. I thought I beat Okami, but it turns out I'm like 3/4 of the way through it. There's still a whole lot more to the game.
They Peter Jackson do, huh?
They kind of do.
Peter Jackson you again.
Yeah. So, but it's still very good. It's very Zelda-like and a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying that game. That's pretty much it. I ordered a new gaming chair, or like just desk chair, because this thing's falling. It's literally like being held together with duct tape right now. So that should be here like next Friday. I wish it was here sooner because this thing's killing my back. But yeah, that's it. That's all I did. That's all I played. Okay. Oh wait, there was one more thing.
Okay.
There's one more. So
Pac-Man.
you guys may remember last week my brother came over for the show and he brought me Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Finally.
And to be honest with you, I was going to wait and stream this game.
Fuck that.
But I talked to everyone in the Discord and they're like, no, dude, just enjoy it. Just play the damn game,
Well, part of that, to be fair, was Josh and I are both on the fence about this.
And we need you to play it.
We need we were like, well, I mean, we've got this window, right?
Mhm.
We've got this very small window.
Exactly.
Now
when Elden Ring.
Elden Ring comes out.
17 days. That's
Right.
not enough.
And we're like,
Maybe it is.
if we're going to play this game, we're going to play it now.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
much. I'm
So
probably
we
not
were
going to
like,
play it.
we need to make up our minds. Paul, we need you to play this because you're the only person. Help us, Paul Kenobi. You're our only hope.
Okay, so I did play this game. I made the decision to start playing it. I think I started on maybe Tuesday. And yeah, Monday or Tuesday, I started playing. I think it was Tuesday. And I have now beaten the game. I beat it yesterday.
6 days.
And I decided to do a quick impromptu stream to get some footage last night. Was going to do it for like half an hour. Ended up going for like 4.5 hours. So
Crazy.
if that alone tells you how addicting this game is, there's something to it. So
I do like being addicted to stuff.
that all being
really
said, I think we
funny,
should
like-
just jump straight into the review and get to talking about it. So let's switch over. There we go. Okay, so the game I'm reviewing this week is Pokemon Legends Arceus. Let's get that mouse out of the screen there. This game is developed by Game Freak. The developers of the Pokemon series.
Yes, I ever played Pokemon?
It was released on January the 28th, 2022. So very recently. I played it on the Switch, and it is only available on the Switch as Game Freak is a first party. Now,
What?
there's something I want to I want to point out just right off the bat about this, and I think that Game Freak being kind of independently run first party of Nintendo is a problem. I think that Nintendo needs to step in and help them out. Now that being said, this game's really good.
Fuck yeah.
So let's get into that. What did I like about the game? It is just like pure dopamine drip constantly. Like it is like the definition of like that addicting, awesome like Pokemon collection game that we've always wanted since the inception of Pokemon. It does that very well. A lot of times I criticize open world games, and I was very hesitant about this because everyone's saying, "Oh, it's the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon and this and that."
I say.
I wouldn't call this an open world game at all.
Oh wow.
It's a very linear storyline.
Oh what?
It's also like there's not an open world. There's open areas. There's open world areas, but each area you have to travel to from your main town. You can't go to other areas, like other regions from, like you can't go from one region to another is what I'm trying to say here. So like you have to go back to town to be able to go to a different region. Also, those regions unlock gradually as you go through the story. So it's not like you can start out and jump right to the end of the game, like you could in
like Breath
of the Wild. Yeah. It's also, similar to like a traditional Zelda game. There's places and things that you cannot do until you unlock special abilities or gain access to, certain items.
That's like traditional Pokemon too, though.
Yes, yeah.
All that,
which is good.
I like that.
The battle system, as you can see right now, I'm doing a battle. You can run around, which is cool. This is the first time we've been able to do this. Like it feels way more like you're actually
JRPG
battling
now.
your Pokemon. Even more like what I imagine a real Pokemon battle would be like, right? Though not quite in real time, it doesn't feel as turn-based. You can also see like your attack order. Like if you pay attention to the background gameplay, there's it shows your attack order up in the top right, and you can actually change that attack order by doing either like a agile or a aggressive version of that move, which you unlock by mastering those moves. So like we've added new elements to the battle system, which makes it more interesting and more dynamic. What else do I like about this game? There's so many things I could list that I like about this game.
Do so, please.
I mean, for real though, like
we need it.
This is helping.
It is helping.
Yeah. There's a lot. In fact, it's easier for me to list things that I don't like because there's very few things that I don't like.
As far as training your Pokemon is concerned, how does that work exactly?
Yeah,
like exactly like before. That's what
very
I'm
similar
about.
To before. Very similar to before. Now, when it comes to like, I don't know which one's EV and which one's IV.
IV is like independent
intrinsic
value. They're just born. Yeah, they're just born
intrinsic
with additional
values.
stats.
Okay.
And EV is the ones you can add to.
Okay. So I don't think IVs. To my knowledge, I don't think IVs exist in this game.
I like that they not exist. Honestly.
Yeah. EVs, on the other hand, you can train up just using items that are pretty easy to acquire.
Like this gives you more power.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that. That's cool,
so they're pretty easy to acquire, and you can max them out. I think they go up to 10.
Held items and all that.
You know what? I don't think there's held items. At least I haven't messed with them.
I'm okay with that. It's one less thing to worry about.
I agree. Evolving. I think it's an unnecessary addition. What was the question?
Do they evolve still?
Yes, of course.
Okay, I had to make sure. Not of course. I don't know. I haven't seen.
Pokemon still evolve. Another thing that I like, and you can see it in the background gameplay right now. There is something called
Rapidash.
You've got alpha Pokemon, right? And these alpha Pokemon will be stronger and larger and more aggressive versions of the Pokemon. You don't have
to fight them necessarily.
You don't have to fight them. But you can.
Fucked if you encounter by accident.
No, you can run away from like any battle. Any battle that's not scripted, you can run away from easily. Though you can die outside of battle, and that's something to be concerned about because you'll lose certain items, which can only be gained back if someone else playing the game finds your satchel and returns it.
What do you mean someone else?
Okay, so this is a cool system, and this is how it works.
Is this online?
Semi-online, yeah.
What?
So this is how it works. Essentially, and I it's not something it really tells you, or at least I don't remember it telling you about, but I noticed that there was little satchels that I could find, and they're marked on your map, and you can pick them up all over the world, and then you have the option to return that satchel to that person. And I was like, okay, and it gives you like a rating for that, and that's cool. But I didn't really know what it did until I started dying and I started losing items. And I tabbed over to, on the satchel screen, it shows my satchels that are out there. Now, if you're playing online, other people will see your satchel and they can find it, and it returns those lost items to you.
Oh, it's so cool.
Which is really cool.
And you basically do that to people just out of good faith.
Yeah.
Like is that it though? Like, are you just at the mercy of?
It's basically if you're in an inconvenient
good of the internet, because that
like,
seems real bad.
If it's like right there on the battlefield, though, someone might just be like, "Oh yeah, why not?"
They're all over. First of all, you don't lose your entire satchel ever. It's just a select number of items. And secondly,
secondly, so many items.
It marks where your satchel is on other people's maps. And so like they'll see satchels in the wild and go just pick them up.
Okay. Yeah, why not? So you do get something? Okay.
Yeah. So so that's cool. I think that's another pretty cool change to the formula. What are some other really cool things? So with alpha Pokemon I was telling you about, it's usually in evolved form, but not always. It's always more powerful. It's always larger and more difficult. And yeah, you can catch them or you could avoid them. They're definitely optional. There's also boss battles that you fight without Pokemon. Let me see. It's kind of cool.
What?
I really want to see that.
Yeah, let me see if I can find. I want
to understand why also.
I did do a boss battle.
Why would you fight a Pokemon with your fists and a gun?
Okay, you don't use your fists and a gun.
A sword.
Okay, so I've got a
that's
boss.
why they called it Sword and Shield.
Yeah, I've got a boss battle going right here. So
which of course makes for great radio. We apologize for those of you watching or listening to this on the eventual, audio recording.
Well, I'm going to explain what's happening. So I'm going to explain what's happening. So we don't have to worry about audio listeners. So what a boss battle consists of is you're in an arena with a Pokemon that's like enraged, and they'll be glowing gold, right? And instead of fighting them with your Pokemon, you have to throw these bombs at them to calm them down. And then once you like hit a certain level, there's certain things you can do to stun them. That will allow you to then send your Pokemon into battle to stun them more. And then you can throw bombs and whatnot. And you're basically just working down their health bar. And then once you've got it completely calmed down.
So it sounds to me like Josh wasn't too far off with his postulation that you're fighting them with a sword. You're throwing explosives at them?
No. Bombs.
Oh, okay.
I was wondering if anyone would wonder that.
BALMS.
And that's why
I knew you meant that. I knew
what you meant, but like,
I actually innately was like, I wonder if people are gonna wonder if he's saying bombs.
Yeah. No, I'm deliberately playing dumb here.
We're on a plane. Calm down, guys.
Anyway, so there's I think 6 of these boss battles, and at least one of them is replayable. I actually like, it seemed silly at first, like when I first heard about these before playing the game, but it's actually pretty fun. It's actually very fun, and it's a pleasant change. Awesome. We've been going on about this forever. I could probably continue listing things that I love about this game, but we need to move on with the review. So let's get on to the things that I don't like. The graphics. The graphics are not good.
Oh no!
They're not the worst.
Good, straight up.
They're not. I mean, you can see the gameplay. Like they're fine, but they're not up to snuff, even with other Nintendo games. Yeah, but like we're way past the GameCube.
It's like the 3DS.
Yeah, it's like the.
Actually does going down and down and down.
And that kind of that brings me back to what I was saying about how I think it's time that Nintendo steps in.
Yeah, we need Nintendo's hand on the wheel.
Yeah, because first-party Nintendo makes amazingly beautiful games. Say what you will about Breath of the Wild. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. So is Mario Odyssey, right? It's amazing. It runs at 60 frames per second, and it looks incredible. Bowser's Fury looks incredible. These games are beautiful, and Nintendo really knows how to maximize the system. Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, I really think that, and I've been saying this, I've said it many times on the podcast, I think that Game Freak doesn't know how to, make next gen games or even current gen games. I think they've always been 1 to 2 generations behind, and if you've ever played any of their other games, you'll
Arceus? What the fuck?
No, this is not Arceus.
I'm seeing what Pokemon did you just use? That was insane.
That wasn't Arceus.
Palkia?
It may have been Palkia. This is Endgame, so this is after
I didn't know it was that crazy. Okay.
Yeah, this game's rad.
Dang.
So cool. Anyway, another thing that I wouldn't say I don't like, but I think some people will be disappointed with this. I'm certainly not, but I do think it's worth mentioning that there really isn't any PvP in this game. There certainly are other trainer battles, but I can't battle my friends.
Wait, how are there trainer battles?
There's plenty of other people that have Pokemon.
That's what I was told. There were like no other trainers in the game.
Oh no, there's other trainers in the game.
There's
plenty other. No, but the gyms. Here's the thing on the gym thing. considering the story and what you're doing in this game, the lack of gym battles totally makes sense, and I didn't miss them at all. Okay. And there's plenty of boss battles and trainer battles that kind of would replace those gym battles. So don't worry about that. Anyway, let's continue. I'm also going to jump because I was stuck on this boss. This is like a boss that you replay in the end game. So I'm actually going to go back in my footage here. Moving on. What did I like about the game? How was the story? The story is really good. Okay. This is probably the best Pokemon story in a long time. Since my favorite Pokemon story is the Black and White 2 story, I think is a really exceptional story for a Pokemon game that's slept on. This is the next best thing. It also next best? Yes. So it's not cheesy, it's not campy, it's not like, it doesn't feel like super kiddie like a lot of the recent Pokemon games do. It's a very competent and well-written story with well-written characters. It's about basically the formation of the first ever Pokedex. And that's your goal in this game is to basically write the Pokedex, which is a lot of fun.
Which is your goal in every game.
Well, not really.
But also
the original.
In Red and Blue, that's like Oak introduces that as I've invented the Pokedex.
He invents the Pokedex.
How is this? How does that work?
Yeah, Oak invents it.
Well, okay, so this takes place way before that. We've gone back in time. It's also potentially an alternate reality.
So I wonder if they just had a Pokedex and it was lost to time.
Sure, fair, and that's possible. That's possible. There's a lot of inconsistencies in like the overall Pokemon timeline if you're going to look at it like that. And I think that this is, obviously like people knew what Pokemon were before Red and Blue within that continuity, right? Yeah. And they were training Pokemon before Red and Blue within that continuity. In this game, you're like the first Pokemon trainers, right? Wow. So, and you're the first people collecting any data on Pokemon.
These animals,
yeah,
they can fight for us.
It's much more nuanced than that, but yes.
Is it? Okay, good. I'm glad it is because I was worried about that a little too.
The story's very engaging, and then all the way through to the end, and then there's an extensive end game. All the footage that is playing behind us right now is in the end game. And I've been playing that. There's like even more story than goes beyond the original, main story, right? Mm-hmm. So that's very cool. The gameplay's excellent. One of the things that you might see in the footage is my use of ride Pokemon, which is really fun, and it's seamless. And you can can change between, not only can you change from like walking to riding on a Pokemon, but you can change between your different ride Pokemon seamlessly as well, which is really cool. And they have pretty cool abilities. So yeah, it's very well done in that aspect of it. How was the art? The art is one of those things that like I think in spirit it's good, but in execution it's bad, right? You can see in my footage that there's a lot of low res textures, a lot of pop in, a lot of things like that, and this is what I'm talking about when I say that Game Freak needs to step up their game a little bit. The music is excellent. It's your classic Pokemon music with kind of like an old Japanese kind of folk music twist to it. Adam mentioned in the comments that you don't think of graphics as art, and I agree, but I think that the art suffers because of the graphics in this case.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like the depictions are great, but the execution of it because of the graphics suffer.
Yes. Okay. Sound design is good. Though, I think there's two camps for this. There's the camp that likes the old school Pokemon, like they sound like animals and you hear their different cries and stuff. And then you've got the people who want the Pokemon to say their names like they do in the show.
Oh yeah, what do they do here?
They don't say their names like they do in the show. They've got,
I
it's
forgot
more
about
old
that,
school,
if I'm being
which
honest.
I actually like better. I like that they sound like animals, you know.
I agree. That would
which
be
is
weird. If they just like Pikachu. I was like,
you know, and then all the other sounds are good. You know, you've got your you know, item throwing sounds and your cool sounds for your attacks, and they're all very reminiscent of, you know, the classic Pokemon games as well. So that's good. How long did it take me? So earlier today, I looked at my play time, and I was at about what was it? Did I say 39 hours
39,
earlier? So, and that was after I had done some extensive work in the end game. So I would say the main game probably takes about 30 hours to complete.
That's good.
Give or take. And then there, like I said, the end game is extensive. So you're going to I've already put another at least 10 hours in after that 30, maybe 12. And I've still got a long way to go. So, you know, there's plenty of game here. There's plenty of bang for your buck. Let's see. Was the game? Oh, yeah. Was the game difficult? Very. This is the most difficult
Very.
Pokemon game.
Very difficult. Dark Souls difficult?
No, not Dark Souls difficult. I say very for a Pokemon game. Okay, so for a Pokemon game, it is very difficult. You know, especially compared to a lot of the more recent entries in the series, where, you know, everything levels up really fast. You don't seem to take a lot of damage, things like that. You know, this game is way more balanced. And even though, like, in a battle, all of your Pokemon will gain experience, it doesn't feel like you're just like flying to level 100 without anything stopping you. In the late game, 10 levels doesn't make that much of a difference. Like I was struggling earlier today with a battle against Giratina. And my Pokemon were all anywhere from like 3 to 10 levels higher than this Pokemon, and it was whipping my ass.
Damn.
So it is, I mean, obviously levels do make a difference, but in the late game, they make much less of a difference than they do in your traditional Pokemon games.
But you can't throw out multiple Pokemon?
You can only ever use one Pokemon. You do fight against multiple Pokemon very often, but there's never a battle where I had more than one Pokemon on the field.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
That would have been cool, but I don't think it's necessary. And I'm sure they'll probably expand into that. With if they continue to do these Legends games, I'm sure those are areas they'll expand into.
I do have a question on the leveling thing.
Yeah.
Are you still handcuffed to the bait and switch tactic if you want to level something?
No.
Thank goodness.
No. You know.
What do you mean?
Yeah, you haven't been handcuffed to that for a very long time, but that's also actually...
I also haven't played a Pokemon game in a long time.
Wait, what bait and switch tactic?
So what he's saying is, essentially, if you've got a low-level Pokemon and you're in the end game and you want to level it quickly, you put him in the front of your team, and the second a battle starts, you switch out with a stronger Pokemon.
Does that work? Or everyone's an even spread of it?
It works in the old games, certainly, but that hasn't been something you've had to do in a Pokemon game for a long time. So
the most recent Pokemon game, I think, was for the DS that I played.
Remember Experience All, the item?
Yeah. Right. So that's
I'm
automatically...
so glad that's not a thing now.
Well, it is, but I mean, it's not an item, but in every battle, all of your Pokemon, as long as they survive that battle, will gain experience. But I'm telling you, it doesn't feel anywhere close to as OP as it does in previous games. This is the hardest Pokemon game I've played. So even with that mechanic, it's still a very difficult game. So for a Pokemon game, that is. Anyway, would I play a sequel? Abso-freaking-lutely. I highly recommend this game. If you're a fan of the series, if you're a fan of particularly like searching for Pokemon and catching Pokemon and all that stuff, this is for you. It's an excellent adventure. If you're in it just for PvP, like competitive battling, this ain't it. This is not the game. All right, because there is no competitive battling. There's battling in the game, but
there's still trainer battling.
There's still trainers that you battle. Yeah,
and they're tough. You're saying
very. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very cool. I like that a lot.
Especially late game and end game, very tough.
Awesome.
So yeah. Anywho, would I play a sequel? Yes, absolutely. Overall rating and impression. This is complicated, right? Because from a gameplay level, I'd say this is drawing close to a 10, right?
Damn.
From an aesthetic level and also lacking, multiplayer functionality and things like that, we've got to take some points off. And it's got to be a significant chunk because, like, I think that, those are big things.
Especially if this is the Pokemon mainline going forward.
Yeah.
Because
especially if this is the mainline
game, basically. Yes. This is basically the red and blue of this.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna give it a lower score than you might expect from my enthusiasm from this game. I'm gonna give this game an 8.3, which I think is still a pretty high score. Because I was considering giving this game somewhere in the 7s, but I think that the gameplay and the addictiveness and everything, it deserves it makes
now,
up
I must
for that.
ask, if we remove the graphics and the no multiplayer, what is the score of this game actually?
Oh man, if this looked
don't do art or graphics or multiplayer.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, so if this game looked like a game like the other first party games that we've seen on this console, and if it had a few more of those elements that it's missing from its predecessors, such as competitive battling, this would be probably like I don't give games 10s, right? So I would say this is probably like a 9.8. If it had those things.
I'm probably gonna think it's a 9.8 because I don't care about graphics at all.
Okay, yeah, you might. Yeah, it's
it's like doggy doo-doo and hand it off to my niece.
I'll play Ocarina at time and say this looks great. So
sure, and that's fine.
This might look amazing.
So here's the thing. Yeah, this game way exceeded my expectations. Like far exceeded my expectations. It's a lot of fun. I haven't had this much fun in a video game in a very long time, and it's just like pure fun. It's not like when I'm playing like a Souls game and I'm like kind of hate myself for doing it. Like this is just like pure unadulterated fun.
I know, that's what Pokemon Snap was.
Yes, it was.
There's also these zones that appear randomly, like these big time space distortions, where you can fight Pokemon that don't normally appear in that world and are maybe more difficult. They're much more aggressive, so you're actually at a fairly high risk of dying when you're in these dimensions. But that's also something that's really cool and exciting when those pop up, because you can find cool Pokemon and things like that. Another thing I forgot to mention is like the more Pokemon you catch and the more data you collect on these Pokemon, the higher your rank becomes. And that's how you gain access to additional items, like the ability to use more enhanced balls and things like that. So, like it gives you a lot of reasons to continue collecting and expanding that Pokedex. So it's very cool. Anyway, let's wrap up the review. Like I said, this is a solid 8.3, and it would be much higher if Game Freak got their shit together. but I can't get in good conscience give it a higher score than that. So anyway,
but I mean that still puts it on par with like Arkham stuff that we've talked about. I mean,
according to Paul, it puts it on par with Dread.
No,
I gave
like an
I gave
8-8.
Dread like I gave it like a 8.8 or something, 8.9.
I gave it
pretty close.
I threatened to give this game like a 7.5.
Pretty close to an 8.6. 8.3 and 8.6 are right there.
In our rating scale, I don't think it is because we tend to scale things up pretty high. But anyway,
this is why
I gave it a 9.8. I think.
Like I'm going to do a spreadsheet project with all our rankings that we have.
I think that's a good idea.
Right? My rank is the highest for sure.
Review, I can say, okay, so you're putting that on par with X.
Sure. Yeah,
okay,
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
fair.
let's end this review. Let's switch back. We'll get into our topic.
I might be
We spent a lot of time in this review. Yeah.
Not sure if I'm gonna get it.
I think you would love this game. I really do.
Now I have to.
Yeah, I love it. Anyway, all right, let's switch back. Shrink.
Shing, shing.
Okay, cool.
Where are we?
So
Where are we on our...
back to reality, boys.
Oh, there is gravity.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So continuing our series on the generations of console gaming, it is now time to talk about the 6th generation of gaming consoles, which I would call the sophomore 3D generation.
Yes. This is when our voices start to change a little gaming wise. I feel like gaming becomes a little more crafted here. Slightly.
Well, before you got here, Josh, I observed that this is the generation that sent us off to college.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It
That's
is.
very true. That is true.
It is.
Yeah,
All of us.
For us specifically, this is like we had like N64 generation and all those games. Then we transitioned into like young adulthood with these consoles. So it is definitely a standing point for like us, but not necessarily other gamers, I feel like. So
I don't know. For a long time, I think it's been outpaced now, but the PS2 was the highest selling console of all time. So that's something to be said there. This was a really big generation, and it really did a lot to change gaming, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, let's do a little bit of history. So this is the first generation of gaming where we don't see a lot of consoles.
True.
You know, even the N64 generation, we still had a smattering of, you know, these other consoles from these other players like Atari and things like that just did not do so hot. And in this generation, we really only had 4 gaming consoles. It started out with the Sega Dreamcast, which released on November 27th, 1998. It's crazy to think that it was
98
that long ago, right?
That's
98.
Insane. So that was the earliest. That's
PS2 is still the best-selling console of all time. Wow, that's crazy.
I think it might be, yeah.
So 98 is when this generation started, which is wild to think, right? Because that's like right smack in the middle of the N64 lifespan.
Exactly.
Dude, that's the same year Game Boy Color dropped.
That's the year the Ocarina of Time came out.
Yeah.
Game Boy Color too. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's wild. It came out in November of 98 in Japan, and then internationally October the 14th of 99. So technically we didn't see it until 99. This was followed by the PS2 on March 4th, 2000 in Japan, and October 26th in the US. I didn't list the other international dates because they kind of varied a lot for the PS2. And then the GameCube and the Xbox released within 3 days of each other in November of 2001. The Xbox beat it, being on November the 15th, and the GameCube the 18th.
Mm-hmm. Knew it.
Yeah, because
what a good time.
3 days.
Oh no, I just remember it.
Oh yeah, I remember it well.
This was a very momentous one for me. Like my memories were more vivid of like the other ones were more childhood, and these are more like formative. And I feel like the memories are clear of this generation of gaming.
Yeah. Yeah. So some more information about these consoles. Sega once again kind of rushed to market. And was also plagued by piracy, despite being a fairly well-loved system. Everyone that I know had a Dreamcast loved it. The problem was, number one, it kind of prematurely released, and so that gave Sony and Nintendo and the first time we see Xbox enter the market, Microsoft, an opportunity to be like, okay, well, this is how we're gonna one-up you.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, unfortunately, the games were kind of free for this console because it really had zero piracy protection on it. And this was in the time period where CD burning was like really big.
Oh, poor Dreamcast.
Yes.
Dude, when Dreamcast in my freshman dorm room, and every single game that we had for it was pirated.
Oh yeah, is that why the GameCube made small discs?
Yes.
Oh wow, that's genius.
That is why the GameCube made small discs.
And I love that Nintendo always does something different.
The only GameCube system that was capable of playing larger discs was the Panasonic GameCube, which was DVD capable. It released in Japan only. I almost bought one while I was in Japan because I was in Japan in 2001.
How much were they?
They weren't cheap.
They weren't cheap.
That's why I didn't buy one. That's why I got a Game Boy Advance instead.
Yeah, that's fair. That's also really cool.
Yeah, I still have it. It's that orange Game Boy Advance. It's very cool. Let's see what else. The PlayStation 2 was the first console to introduce DVD support. Xbox was able to do this as well, but it required a special dongle and remote to activate it, so you couldn't do it just with a controller. Which is interesting. It's also kind of might be why the PlayStation was so successful, because it was marketed as a DVD player.
That's true.
So and DVDs were the new hot shit.
You could just buy a PS2 for you and the missus, and the kids get a gaming console at the same time.
Right.
That's genius.
That's how my cousin sold it to his parents. Same company who got the PS1 that I mentioned last week. He was like, "Hey, we've got all these VHS tapes that take up a lot of space. Why don't we get a DVD player?
Yeah,
let's get this one." And they were like,
if I remember correctly, it was also like price-wise very comparable to DVD players at the time. Maybe even cheaper than some DVD players. So yeah,
this generation of consoles was pretty cheap, I feel like.
Yeah, it was right around 200 if I remember
correctly.
correctly.
The GameCube was like 2, I want to say also, or like 150. It was like so cheap.
Yeah.
It was stupid cheap, yeah.
All Gen 6 consoles either came with a modem built in or had attachments to allow standard or broadband connections. The Xbox is the only console that came with a standard or came standard with a broadband modem in it already. So this is the first time, even though there was online gaming before this, even as far back as the Super Nintendo, this was the first time this was like really forefront, and most gamers had access to this. Also the first generation to institute DLC, and that was with the Sega Dreamcast, and it was via your VMUs, which were fucking cool, by the way. It was like a tiny little Game Boy that plugged into your controller. Such a cool idea. I wish that carried on, but unfortunately this was also the end of memory cards, because even though used them. Every single console had a memory card, the Xbox introduced internal hard drives, which became standard going forward from this generation on.
Cool.
And we had the memory card slot because GameCube,
exactly. But it also had internal memory, yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And the memory card slot on the game, or on the we're talking about GameCube. But the Xbox copied the Dreamcast design, and your memory card slot was in your controller. Though again, it was way cooler on the Dreamcast because you had the VMUs, man. Those things were so cool. Did you guys ever mess with a VMU? It was a visual memory unit. It was your memory card, but it had a tiny little screen, tiny little D-pad, tiny little buttons, and you could play awesome games on it that you downloaded from your game
sick.
onto your card, which
And
was
sometimes back and forth with the game you were playing.
yeah.
Ronnie had one.
Yeah.
He never used. Ronnie was a jerk.
Yeah, Ronnie.
Man, fuck Ronnie.
Fuck Ronnie. You're fired.
Yeah.
Anywho.
You know, I was allowed to use his stuff was when he was out.
Yeah. As far as console sales were concerned, this is wild. If you look at really most of the consoles in this generation, you would say that they were failures with the exception of one.
Yeah, exactly. And not even immediate one. That's the thing. How these are longevity sales of the PS2 also. Like, when did it become the best selling console?
Very early.
Years after. Very early? Year of?
It was very early.
It was a front runner from drop. So so the Sega Dreamcast only sold 10.6 million units.
It's like certain Zelda games have sold like 100 million.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
The GameCube kind of doubled that, right? So we had 21.
I knew the GameCube did not do well. Yeah.
Yeah, we had 21.74 million on the GameCube, and surprisingly, also as big as the marketing for Xbox was, it only sold 24 million units.
That's
nuts.
not
super successful.
It was not super successful.
I thought it looked like shit.
I hated it. Yeah.
I did not think it was cool.
Though
the controller was uncomfortable.
Controllers and the games didn't look clean.
Sure.
Right.
I was used to Nintendo at that time, and I was like, oh, even PS2 looked way better.
Well,
than
here's
that.
something to say about the Xbox, and we'll talk about it more in kind of our later bit of this, but Xbox might have done the most for gaming in the long run.
Internal hard drive.
But the PS2 smashed them all with 127 million, and that's still the highest selling console of all times.
That's insanity.
127. Did I say 125?
100 plus million more.
55 million. What?
Oh, really?
Are you looking?
You know what? This was as of, I think 2014 was my number.
Oh yeah, it was 6 years.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm
saying. 25 more million in 7 years, or 50 more million, 70 more. I can't even count.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is Wikipedia, so I may be wrong, but
okay. Well, yeah, and my number could be wrong as well. But it still really smashes every other console from that generation. Let's talk about personal experiences, boys.
Yes.
Tell me, we'll start with Zach this time. We've been starting with Josh a lot because it's, because you've had
the Nintendo
kind of
Nintendo
yeah
until now.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll start with Zach. And what was your first Gen 6 console experience? What console was it?
So
first Gen 6 memory.
Before the show, Paul and I were talking about our personal reflections on the Gen 6 consoles, and I said that I could barely remember any PlayStation 2 games. And then Paul started rattling off a few, and I was like, okay, it's slowly starting to come back to me. Turns out my very first experience with a Gen 6 console was a PlayStation 2. My buddy Bruce got his hands on Red Faction 2. And he
that's an all-time great.
Such a good game. He had Red Faction 1. We played it very briefly, and he's like, 2 is just that much better. And we really should, like, if we're going to play one of these games, it should be Red Faction 2. We had so much fun putting dummies in barbecue pits and lighting them on fire. Like every time we got into a mission, that's what we wanted to do.
That's
Find
also
the gap, carve it out with a rocket launcher, and set people on fire.
That's also the first ever game with fully destructible environments.
Oh wow, no way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
very cool.
So that was definitely my first experience with a Gen 6. Shortly thereafter, if not like the same week, my friend Nathan got his hands on a GameCube, and that's what I remember best for sure. Because I was at Nathan's a lot more. Well, like if I was at Bruce's, it was usually to do my homework. If I was at Nathan's, that's where we did, like we'd go hiking in the morning, and then we'd go home and play video games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And usually the hike would be very short because Nathan didn't want to do it. But like that was my mom's stipulation. If we're going to play video games, we got to go on a hike or a walk or something like that first. So we definitely played a lot of Zelda and Super Smash Brothers and Mario Kart. Double Dash to this day is one of my all-time favorite.
Double Dash is one of the best racing games ever.
So freaking good.
I honestly think that Double Dash revolutionized how Mario Kart feels and made it like the best racing game.
Yes.
Yeah, I still like the original, or not the original. I think 64 is a better game.
Crazy. Have you felt the turning in any of the new games?
Yeah.
Right. Double Dash really like it redefined what it meant to turn.
Yeah,
and
that's what it really did. Yeah,
the slamming and stuff. It's like this now feels like a unique racing experience where the original in 64 were like, okay, this is just like a run of the mill kart thing, but it gave it its Double Dash gave it its own identity.
I'd agree.
Yeah,
made it feel like a real Mario. Like it had its own type of feel. Yeah,
and the fact that you can play it with a partner, like I was an insanely accurate gunner and an absolute gobshite driver. So I would just stand on the back of the cart and nail enemies with shells all day long, and Nathan would drive, and it would be perfect. And we would go to tournaments and slaughter everybody.
You know what it reminds me of? Have you seen Cool Runnings?
Yes.
Yeah,
you know the push carts, Sanka, the push cart champion.
There's a Mario Party game, also bobsled, whatever.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah,
feel the rhythm,
feel the rhyme. Get on up, it's bobsled time.
I love that movie so much. It's so good.
It is so good.
Josh, what about you? What's your first memory of a Gen 6 console? What console was it?
Gee, I wonder. Let's see. Although I did play PS2 and had the rivalry still growing now, I of course waited until the GameCube came out to really play a Gen 2 console. I just was on N64. I took kind of a dip into gaming where I didn't really play as much after like Majora's Mask, so I had that was pretty much the last game I played on the N64 actually. And then it was like a year and a half or almost 2 years until that November. And then I got I think I got it for Christmas actually. So I had to wait. I think they got it and made me wait till Christmas to get my GameCube. Luigi's Mansion and Pikmin though, first games. Dude. This was took me back into gaming. This was the first generation that I was working, so I had money. It was no longer like what games my mom was like, guiding me at Walmart, through. Like now I could like buy my own games, and it's fucking amazing. Luigi's Mansion is incredible. I was blown away. The graphics amazing. I never played anything like this. I was like, it's so much smoother than the PS2, that garbage. Like I did think that. I always think that Nintendo, they're like spherical, like their smoothness of like their characters, like especially in Mario games, like just it negates any of the bad graphics. You know what I mean? Like pretty much at that point, it's just textural. Like you're like, okay, the pixeling is bad, but like I love how smooth it is. I was blown away. I loved it. And Pikmin was such a new game. Like to me, I was convinced Nintendo was like going in the right direction. And then finding out that the GameCube did like so poorly, I was like, oh yeah, shit. It was just like me enjoying that. But I played like every fucking thing on the GameCube. I love that console. And personally, no one agrees with me, but some do. It is the best feeling controller in my opinion. And it might just be because of my
other than for Nintendo. Like
of this generation, I'll agree with you. But beyond that, I don't. And actually, I like the ergonomics of the Dreamcast controller better. It's not a better controller because it doesn't have two sticks.
It might just be how my hand is shaped, but like it just like fits perfectly, and my fingers fit like perfectly in the L and R, and just like I can like really like I played a lot of Smash, all the Smashes up until the current one with the GameCube controller because I have the auxiliary plug-in since Melee, and like I can like crush these controllers. You know what I mean? Like, put so much into these controllers and then be like fine.
Yeah.
All of my GameCube controllers are trash now.
What? None of mine have ever.
All the left sticks are fucked.
I've had a few left sticks, but I've had like 10 controllers in my life. I have 6 right now that work great.
Gosh, the Wavebird though.
The Wavebird I never had, but I loved it. Yeah.
The Wavebird's the first wireless controller.
Oh, true. This is also the first
ever wireless controller.
Nintendo doing it. They always do.
Well, that's not true. There was wireless controllers for the original Nintendo, but they were shit and they were third party. Yeah. They were real trash.
Let's not forget they were the first people to make VR.
Yeah.
Right. But yes, that's my experience. I was blown away. I literally couldn't get enough. Like by the time Sunshine and Prime came out, I was pretty much 10-hour days of gaming. I was like really gaming a lot at this point. Like I remember one time I literally played Metroid Prime for 10 hours. Like I cannot get enough of Nintendo. Since then it's been history, you know.
Yeah. For me, it was the Dreamcast. My friend Matt Moore, he was one of the older guys at youth group, and he got one, and he brought that over, and we played Sonic Adventure and Ready to Rumble until our fingers bled. Yeah, it was incredible. That was my first experience with this, and I was so blown away by the graphics in Sonic. Like I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. They could not get graphics couldn't get better than this.
Like Sonic's always looked okay.
Yeah,
that was the closest we ever saw to the comic books, which is where I was most familiar with him from. I know, but Sonic Adventure looked good.
Yeah, and Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube looked even fucking better.
Sonic Adventure 2 was on the Dreamcast as well, but it was better. It was better on the GameCube. It was better. I will say
that the fucking song, like I still sing. I sang it in the shower, like no joke, a week ago. Rolling around at the speed of sound.
Yeah,
like I think that's the best Sonic game that exists. Personally,
I think it is too. Yeah, well, yeah. I think it is. Yeah, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 I think are really good.
I think Adventure 1 is the second best.
Yeah. I think that so I can't remember if we got a Dreamcast or a GameCube first. I know Adam bought both of them at some point. And
so you guys have money now.
Yeah.
You're working man.
Exactly. And I think we got a GameCube first. But to be honest with you, I don't remember, but definitely the Dreamcast was my first experience. So that really formed my opinions on the generation early. And I love the Dreamcast. And it breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart. Oh yeah. Yeah. The Dreamcast, we did get the Dreamcast from Matt. He's right. Adam just chimed in
console.
Chat. Huh?
It's the first console to go obsolete within this amount of time.
Yeah, it broke my heart because there's some
also was so
really good games on that console too.
Crazy Taxi.
Really good Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio,
and the GameCube ported everything.
You have freaking like the Sonic games. You got Grandia 2, which was amazing.
This was Sega's last console.
It was their last console. It was their last console. What
honestly,
else? Skies of Arcadia.
Oh, Skies of Arcadia is great.
Soul Calibur, Shenmue, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Power Stone and Power Stone 2. Are you kidding me? These games are amazing.
When is Nintendo just going to buy them so they can be incredible?
Dude, I've been saying this, right? Sega's dying a slow death and they need to be saved. We need Nintendo. Please,
a Game Freak right now.
Please, God.
Can you imagine Nintendo just takes Sonic and just like, can you imagine?
Dude, I need Nintendo to buy Sega. Please, someone needs to save them.
They would love that. They would love to have their hand on a new type of platformer like that.
But I don't think so. Okay.
Side-scrolling
Somebody
Sonic.
asked that in like an official capacity over the past week. Yeah. And Nintendo was like, we're just not into that.
No. They didn't ask them to buy Sega. They asked if they are interested in making big purchases like what Sony and Microsoft are doing. And Nintendo's response was, these other companies don't have Nintendo DNA, and that's why we don't. But here's the thing: Sega very much, I think, does. And if they're gonna buy a company, Sega makes the most sense.
I think that Sega has the most potential that if taken under Nintendo's wing can become like the games will become seamless with Nintendo.
Mhm.
Like I could play Sonic and it will feel like a Mario game. I bet that can happen.
We need it.
Until then, like this new Sonic game that's coming out, if it's like Adventure 2 Battle or whatever, I love it.
And Nintendo's also had really close partnerships with Sega over the past several years. And they even got Genesis. Yeah, Mario, Sonic, and the Olympic Games. You got Genesis on the expansion pack on the Switch. So we'll see. I really hope that
Mario
happens.
and Sonic at the you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They both working on it at the same time, double studio. Or does like Sega do it?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Because they basically work together at that point. You know what I mean? So it's like doable then.
Yeah. Continuing. What other consoles games from Gen 6 did you play other than your main squeeze? Like tell me about some other positive experiences or even negative experiences if you had them. Let's start with Josh.
Oh, yes, because mine will be brief. Really, most of it was on the Advance at this point. Is Advance in this category? Yeah, this is that, right? Yeah. This is like color Advance. And so that's
Advanced. Technically, Advanced is this generation.
Okay. Because Game Boy is one gen, I think. So
and the Game Boy was linkable with the GameCube. The Game Boy Advance was.
Yes, that's true, which I actually had as well.
I've got two Game Boy link cables.
Or not. It was just like, I don't remember. It wasn't called the Super Game Boy Advance. It was just like something different. I don't remember, but I loved that.
Game Boy Advance player.
I played a lot of games exclusively on that. Like I'd pick up Game Boy games after that just to play them on that, and like would never play them on my Game Boy. But that being said, a little bit of PS2. My friend had a PS2, and this is the question, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We played Lord of the Rings and like some other various games. Lord of the Rings stood out to me the most. Yeah. Lord of the Rings 2, I think it was Two Towers specifically.
It was because they only did Two Towers and Return of the King. So the second one was Return of the King.
Okay. It was fairly long ago. It was when I had a GameCube, so I was
weren't they just like basically like the Star Wars Battlefront games reskinned?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
To me, it felt like semi-RPG-esque. I felt like I still was like casting spells and shit, but like it was definitely like semi-Dynasty Warriors-esque, but not that crazy. You know, but I always thought that Nintendo just did everything better. Like, I'm not even sugarcoating it. Like, and I watched my friends play Grand Theft Auto. Guy can't even talk. And I thought that game's horseshit to this day. I think the concept of GTA is crap. I'm sorry. But it also looked so bad to me, and I didn't like how they were doing real people. This was a big thing for me. If you're going to put a person into a game, make him look like Mario if your graphics can't handle it. Otherwise, it's going to look fucking weird. And to me, like, I'm more on, like, believability. Like, even Link, like, he's still, like, triangular, but, like, it made it work with their graphics. You know what I mean? And, like, I felt like the PlayStation 2, like, didn't do that. So I was just like, and especially Xbox, I was just hugely turned off by everything that wasn't.
I think that's the biggest struggle, and that's kind of why I called this the sophomore 3D generation, because I think that's the biggest struggle with this generation. Early on, I think later on they actually cranked out some games that looked really good. In fact, like I've played a few PlayStation 2 games up-resed through emulation, and they look phenomenal.
Final Fantasy X, right, is incredible.
So they're definitely later in the generation are some exceptional looking games that look a little more realistic. But early on, when they were trying to do that realism, it was a problem. And we've mentioned this a billion times. Doing a more stylized game really adds to its longevity.
AKA making a Nintendo game.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Zach, what about you? What other experiences than your kind of main?
I'm glad Josh mentioned the Game Boy Advance player because that was also my introduction to Mega Man.
No way.
This is it. This is the generation that introduced me to Mega Man Zero. And that's I remember hanging out at Travis's and we had the Game Boy player, and so that was absolutely essential to me. But beyond that, like Halo and Halo 2.
Oh God, all my friends were so into that.
Yeah. Well, but I mean,
I went to
Red
LAN
versus
parties.
Blue was a thing, and we tried, like, this is when Another Letdown Media was just starting. We were Coalition Films at the time. And we decided, actually, it was because some of us were going to France for a class trip when we were supposed to be going on a science field trip. And the science teacher decided to give us extra homework. And he was like, here, go make a movie. And we're like, okay. So we tried to be Rooster Teeth and make dumb Halo Machinima. As part of what we were trying to do, but we were also learning conventional animation and stuff too. So it was actually a neat video, and I wish I still had it. It was called "How Not to Use a Sled," and
Nice.
It actually paved the way for a lot of what I do now. So that's kind of cool. What else? I just had a whole bunch of them, and now I can't remember. No, I mean, like we played a lot of stuff on I guess all three major consoles. Pretty much exactly what you'd expect from me, superhero. Sure. Actually, I remember we brought the GameCube with us on a field trip because we were so engrossed in some X-Men game, X-Men Legends, X-Men Legends 2.
Legends was on this, or something.
I think it was X-Men Legends 2. And that game was rad. But yeah, so this was really like very formative in what I would end up enjoying in gaming. This is the generation that kind of taught me what to look for.
I agree with that actually completely. The games that came out were refined to a point that I was like able to leaf through them and be like, that's such a good point. Like I really was deciding like these games suck. These are games I fucking enjoy. Damn, these are good. Damn, these suck. And from then on, like those types of games I would always look at and be like, yeah, I'm gonna like that. Like
This was also my introduction to like games I didn't care for. Grand Theft Auto, for example.
Sure.
I am not a fan. I'm not a fan, but I gave it the old college try. Like I played it a bunch.
It's always something I played at a friend's house. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we just put in a bunch of cheat codes and like blow shit up with tanks.
Right. Exactly.
It's a 5 stars.
Right. And so like I played it a bunch. I didn't enjoy it. What I did enjoy, and I would always beg for it, was DBZ Budokai.
Yes.
Ooh,
that game was so good.
On the PS2.
Tenkaichi.
Yeah.
It's PS2.
Tenkaichi 3 is so fucking good.
That's next gen.
Is it?
That's 7.
No,
yeah,
I think I had
one and two were on PS2.
No.
It was on the Wii.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it might be on the Wii, but I think it was originally on the PS2.
The PS2
anyway,
stretched like 8
the first
years.
two that was the first time I remember being good at a game where other people were not. Like I mean I mentioned when we were talking about the Super Nintendo PS2 a couple weeks ago that like I was good enough at Super Mario World that I could hog the Super Nintendo. This was the first time that I was like I sat down in a game and I was immediately good at it. And it was because of arcade stuff that I was familiar with. I didn't know thing one about Dragon Ball at the time. And in fact, it was the game that got me to watch the show in the first place. But like, I remember the first time we started a campaign or like the story mode, and my friend Kel and our goal was to hand off the controller every level. And it got to the point where Chris and Brett, my two buddies, were like, we can't keep up. Like Kel and Zach are just going to finish this game. And we're just going to sit here and watch. And I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. So yeah, that game has some very fond memories attached to it. Even though it's not really something that I'm like, that I would, see on the shelf and go play again.
Yeah. I also had experience with all three consoles. Like I said, our first one was the Dreamcast, and then we later got a GameCube. Those were kind of both Adam's consoles, though. My first console that was my own from this generation was a PS2, and I loved that. That's probably even though I think technically I would say that the Super Nintendo overall maybe is a better console. My most beloved, the best console, yes. My most beloved console was my PS2 for a lot of reasons. Number one, it was the first console I owned myself. Of this generation. I But actually, you know, I didn't get like a Super Nintendo or a PlayStation until much later.
Yeah, I got
either.
all that so late. Yeah.
Yeah.
The GameCube was actually the first one that I got like when it came out.
Yeah.
The N64 even I got like I think like 6 months or so later.
Yeah. But also this is the console that I had through some of the hardest times of my life, you know, and it really got me through a lot of that.
High school.
Yup.
Well, yeah. Well, I was playing this mostly during my college years. You know,
He's a little bit older than we are, Josh.
Not that much.
I'll be 36 this year.
Oh yeah, 4 years. Okay, yeah. I started GameCube when I was like, I mean, say 14. 13.
Certainly the GameCube and really all of these came out while I was still in high school. But like honestly, the only reason I moved on from the PS2 is because it
11.
It broke. Like my PS2 broke, and I was desperate, and I sold almost all of my other video games, which I regret at this point because I had some really cool shit. I had a Saturn, and I had a Sega Nomad, which I really regret getting rid of. Yep. And mine was perfect too. It didn't have a burnt out screen or anything like that. It was beautiful. And I sold that all to buy a 360 because I needed something. Like I needed a distraction from my life at that point, you know?
Yeah.
And until then it was my PS2. That's what was getting me through everything. So yeah, that was a big deal for me. I freaking love that game or that console, and I still do. And there's some amazing freaking games on that. Think about this. I mean, like this is the generation that gave us God of War, you know.
God of War, the first 3.
You know?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love the first 3 God of Wars.
Yeah. and tons of other incredible games. Shadow of the Colossus, which is one of my all-time favorite games, period. You know, you have like Final Fantasy X. You've got, you know, this is where Ratchet and Clank were, the Metal Gear, you know, Solid 2 and 3, Eco, you know, all these freaking bangers. I think it's pronounced, it might be Ico. I don't know, whatever. You know, so like this generation was huge for me, and really PlayStation meant so much. So,
good.
So yeah, that was, you know, while it wasn't my first experience from this generation, it was probably the most substantial one for me. So, let's wrap it up with the final question here, guys. The overall influence of this generation.
Interesting.
Oh, you know what? Okay. We skipped one. We're kind of late. Let's combine these two questions because we're kind of long in the tooth on this episode. So what console/games held up the best from this generation and why? And then also what was the overall influence?
Easy.
And let's who did I ask last?
Me was first last. I was first last.
All right, Zach, we're gonna go with you then on this.
All right, so I think bar none, and this I don't think this is super controversial.
No.
The fact that there are still regular Super Smash Brothers Melee tournaments all over at least the Northeast, I presume the country, if
online.
Not even the world.
The world,
online,
yes.
Yeah. I think that game has held up or has the largest staying power out of any game in this generation. People go back to it. People consistently reference it as the best that Super Smash Brothers has ever been. While it's not my jam necessarily, like if someone says, "Hey, I've got a GameCube, we're playing Super Smash Brothers," I'm not going to back out. That's where we started to get the 3D and like the really proper 3D environments. We got, you know, the establishment of like Final Destination is where you fight if you have a nerd dispute.
If you're a man, items.
No items. Final Destination. Let's go.
Battlefield is bitches.
Right. So I really do think that has the largest staying power. As far as influence, you know, this is where we started to see a very distinct separation in paths in terms of like Josh and I were both, you know, very much on the Nintendo train. That's where we were focused at that time. Not to say like I wasn't quite as hardcore on the others are garbage and we should never play them.
Mhm.
But like that was where my mind was at the time. And we started to establish ourselves as niche gamers. And while it was a considerable part of our lifestyle, I think this is the generation that influenced that decision-making process.
Mhm.
Oh, damn. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah. Josh, what about you? The combo question.
One more time.
Overall, so what console / games held up the best and why, and also what was the overall influence of this generation?
Yes, everything on Nintendo. I mean, Luigi's Mansion, Melee, literally, I feel like Smash has never ended. Like he says, it's like Melee started here. The N64 is another game. I can't wait to play that on the online on the Switch. But like Melee is really when Smash Bros. Like started. And it's like here now. And I agree with Zach on that game feels so continuous. But for me, actually, the game that held the most is Super Mario Sunshine. I think this game is fucking flawless. It is so beautiful. I can't even express enough how this is a 10 in my book. Like I love this game so much. But like Zach said, I think the big one that I take home from this is like, this was the informative years genres. This is where like people of all sorts of like whatever decided like how they like to game. New types of games were coming out and perspectives were like so vast as far as developers were concerned at this point. Like it's insane how like near oversaturation the market was starting to become as far as like different types of games for different types of people. So where you could like see the commercials for games now and be like, okay, that's for me. That's not for me. This is like a game my friend would be into. And like all these genres are becoming solidified. And all of that. I think the big takeaway is the ramp up to the next generation. I think we're ebbing back, we're cocking back, and now we acknowledge how crazy gaming can be, and we're ready, and we're taking this for what it is. But the knowledge that gaming is only going like vastly into the future is like the big takeaway from this generation. Everyone is like ready for the new tech. Like Xbox, like you said, came out of the gate with the internal hardware and all this other shit. Like, you know, online capabilities are getting there. Like everything is like ready to culminate. So like everyone's like right there. This is the last generation we see that's on the precipice, and everything from here on forth is the future generations, I would say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So as this question is kind of a two-part question, my answer is kind of multifaceted as well. I kind of agree with you guys that GameCube games probably hold up the best, though I think there's arguments for other games.
There are.
You know, people still play Halo 2, right?
Yes.
The God of War games are incredible still to this day. I agree. And, you know, while they're not as popular, I think games like Way of the Samurai really still hold up very well. And there's plenty of other games that you could list. I think really overall, all of these consoles actually aged pretty well, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But if you're going to come down to what console held up the best, I do kind of have to agree, just because of like Nintendo's style.
Forgot about Paper Mario.
Paper Mario. Those games, you know, they hold up the best. Now, which console had the most overall influence? And you know, and how this generation influenced gaming overall as well. I think that goes to the Xbox, and I'll explain why. Xbox got rid of memory cards, essentially. They got us into online gaming, which, you know, for better or for worse, right? Because, you know, this also kind of was the last generation of couch co-op.
It was.
It was
true. Yeah.
So,
and I think part of that is because the core players of that couch co-op generation were now moving into college. And Paul and I mentioned before the show, LAN parties were a thing. And I personally think that LAN parties were a desperate cling to what we knew growing up.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah.
So deep.
But you know, also the whole online thing really shaped that as well. But you know, while I don't think Xbox was by any means the best console of that generation, I think it definitely had the biggest overall impact on the industry. You
Yeah, there were now 3 competitors, 3 massive, like towering dogs.
Right.
Like,
Well, and this
vying for
generation
the
is what killed Sega too, and made the big 3, right? So now
exactly.
now we have only the big 3, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo.
It's crazy that that's lasted for 20 years,
Mhm.
21 years. That's
Yeah.
insane.
It's wild.
Wow. Kings.
So yeah, and then I just kind of like a special mention. Adam brought it up in the chat. Probably my favorite co-op experience, and maybe one of the best co-op experiences of all times, was Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on
Oh yes, what a
on
good
the
game.
GameCube. Was
Yep.
so good. It really breaks my heart that the remaster of it is such a piece of shit.
I never even played that. I forgot it existed until just now.
Yeah.
But the original was so freaking amazing. Like literally the most fun.
I agree.
Yeah.
Graphics
Co-op
were really
experience.
good. I thought it
Graphics
was
were really
a
good too.
looking Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
He also brought up plug and play shovelware. This is another thing that kind of started this generation, mostly on the Xbox. Which is something that we still deal with. But anyway, there's a lot of really positive things about this generation, but it's also kind of the death of what we loved the most about gaming in some senses.
And we are seeing some of that return at this point. Like Switch has really encouraged a lot of couch co-op to return. I can bring my Switch over to my sisters and play with my nieces on the couch, and it's delightful.
Agreed. Yeah, it's coming back.
So.
There were a few. There was like literally a 2 console generation there where like it was really vying for the internet, and now it's finally starting to reintegrate all of it. Together again. Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts?
I wonder if that's because our generation is having kids now.
Maybe.
And now we're like back.
I really do think that our generation is a very strong linchpin. In video gaming, like we drive that decision making.
I think so too.
That's insane. I love it.
Boys, any final thoughts before we close it out?
Nintendo,
I love
amazing
this generation, man.
I love it. This is a lot of love for this generation.
Yeah. Some people say it's the greatest. I disagree. I think the previous generation was, but this is a damn close one.
I will say that like this,
or no, not the previous, the one before that, rather.
The sandwich of the Super Nintendo to the GameCube is my absolute fucking favorite portion of gaming history. That time when the edge, like the right at the edge of Super Nintendo to all the way through GameCube, my favorite history in gaming. Absolutely, I love those 2 generations.
And I definitely have some good memories attached to the next generation that we'll talk about next week.
Sure,
I can't wait to tell the story about.
Next generation against Rocky.
Getting our Wii was a story.
The next 2 are going to be Rocky.
That's another story for another day.
Very cool. Well, boys, great show tonight. If you're watching it live, you are watching it on my Twitch channel, which is where I do, all my fun streams. I generally my days are Tuesdays and Thursdays for my main games, and sometimes we'll do special streams on Thursdays, like Brawler Bros or Souls Mates. And then Saturday's always a Samurai game, Samurai Saturday, and then we're back here on the channel every Sunday night for the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, please share it, and we will love you for that. If you want to yell at me on Twitter, please do. It's at Ryugami-sama. And that's about it. Josh, where can we find you, my guy?
Yes, Lord Yeshua and Lord Yeshua TTV on all my shit. And I said Kirby was going to be the next game I stream, but damn if I might go to GameStop tomorrow. I don't know. We'll find out if I'll be streaming Pokemon. But again, you played it off stream, so maybe not. So.
I did play. I did a really. I mean, you can go watch my stream. It's all in-game content. There shouldn't really be many spoilers, if any.
Pacing seems like
a 4 hour. It was like a 4 hour stream at least, and it was a lot of fun. Like
I guess the game isn't hindered by streaming. Yeah.
No, and it's so addictive. Like I haven't had this much fun, like just pure fun, just unadulterated like enjoyment in a game in a while.
It's awesome. So. Better than his marriage.
Yep.
Just kidding.
No.
Oh,
No.
I'm just kidding.
Nope. Zach.
Okay, good.
What about you, man?
You can find me on. You can find me on Twitch at Another Letdown. I'll be live on Wednesday for Zach Sucks Games. We're going to be playing some more DLC for Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. And I don't think we're going to get as far as Miles Morales this week because I got a lot to do still in the DLC, but that's fine. And then I will be back on Saturday painting miniatures with Paul's brother Adam.
Cool.
It's been a lot of fun.
Very good. Well, boys, have an excellent evening. We'll see you guys next time. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.